Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal law.
You know, we have one stat that I quote, the autism stat, condoms, 100 million for Hamas. Otherwise, you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Let's watch a Trump press conference where he addressed multiple governors, and we're going to start with a rather spicy clip of a Democratic governor, the governor of Maine to be specific, showing exactly what you should do to fascist bullies like Donald Trump. So be sure to like the video, it helps us out a ton, and we'll be back with the context that is very much needed.
Is the Maine here, the governor of Maine?
Down here,
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
Trump is literally like 1 in 40 in court, so good luck with that one, buddy. I'll bet on anyone against Trump in court, but look how he's arguing with a governor like a petulant child because he wants to get his slam dunk social media clip of forcing compliance of the woke left, and she wouldn't go along with it. But it is telling in what he said. We are the federal law. That's not true at all, but it is how a dictator would view himself. Like his word is law and those who don't comply will be punished. And now he's threatening to withhold funding from her entire state if she won't do what he says. Sounds like a quid pro quo. I mean, it's quite literally the most authoritarian thing that we've ever seen a president do, at least openly and outwardly. And it's well without this outside the bounds of his power. The Constitution was literally created to give states assurances that the federal government wouldn't be able to try to do things exactly like this. Also, by Trump and MAGA and Republicans' own logic, doesn't she have a mandate from the people to do whatever she wants in her state since she won the election in Maine?
$50 million plus another $50 million for condoms for Hamas. They gave $50 million and it worked out so well, they gave another $50 million a little bit later. Condoms, $100 million for Hamas.
One surefire way to know someone is lying is if they can't even keep their own story straight. It went from $50 million for condoms to Gaza to $50 million for condoms to Hamas that they used for bombs somehow. Then now it's $100 million for Hamas condoms. Kind of funny though, because Elon admitted that he got this wrong while standing next to Trump in the Oval Office like 3 days ago, but yet Trump can still parrot these things because misinformation doesn't matter. We're just supposed to believe that Hamas is getting it so much they need billions of condoms, and it's because he knows how wildly unsuccessful he's going to be legislatively, right? At lowering prices, at the things that he ran on, essentially. So he's just building out how he'll sell how he didn't fail to his people, how MAGA can still say that MAGA is good and Republicans did great because he's the guy who cut massive waste and fraud, despite the fact that we're seeing almost every claim Doge makes turn out to be a lie, like the one Trump is parroting here, or they're calling things that nobody was hiding some sort of conspiracy or corruption. But when your base is MAGA, you don't really need the facts. You just have to tell them what you want, what they want you to hear, or however you're supposed to say that.
You know, we have one stat that I quote, the autism stat, and you hear different numbers, but it's thousands. They say between 10 and 20,000. So if you go back 15 years ago, we had like nobody. It was 1 in 20,000. Now we have 1 in 34. Is that right? 34. So 34 or 36 kids have autism. And if you go back, I guess 18 years, that whenever that was done, it was 1 in 20,000. So we got from 20,000 to 34, 36. That's unbelievable.
To clarify, Trump is way out of his depth here and has no idea what he's talking about, and that's clear within a couple seconds. As a behavioral therapist who's worked with those on the spectrum, is certified in dealing with autism, and has done this for over 8 years, let me lay this out for you, not Trump. First off, I mean, anyone who knows anything about autism knows the 1 in 20,000 number is a complete lie and always has been a complete lie. It's also not from 18 years ago. It's from like the 1960s. And the reason why this is a lie, a number nobody should be quoting, is because in the 1960s, autism wasn't individually diagnosed or recognized. It was seen as a rare part of schizophrenia. That's why it was such a rare diagnosis. As we've learned more about what autism is, as we've recognized it as its own individual thing since the DSM-3, which I believe didn't come to like 1980, we've learned more about how to diagnose it. Obviously, it's going to become more common of a diagnosis. This is how these things work. I mean, this is the case with most things in the DSM as they've grown from the DSM-1 to now the DSM-5, obviously how to diagnose things becomes more updated. Anytime I hear people rant about how, well, it's so much more common now, it has to be a problem, I just think of the chart with left-handedness that shows the massive spike it went through, and I wonder what people would have said if social media existed then. Like, left-handedness is caused by the toxins in the water, or vaccines make people left-handed, or the woke left wants people's hands side to match their political side. I don't know. But I also take issue in the way that this dumbass even talks about autism. Like it's something that needs to be cured, because it's not. It really isn't. There's nothing wrong with autism. And plenty of people with autism live perfectly normal lives, especially in terms of if we're talking about the common forms of autism that people are getting diagnosed with to the rates of 1 in 34. It's a sensory processing disorder. It just means the way that they process things is different from us. That's all. They might need to learn things a different way. They might need to be told things a different way. They experience things differently. So the way that they respond might be a little different. That could lead them needing maybe a bit different of an environment if they're to really thrive, but it's not something that needs to be cured or spoken about like it's a problem, because it's not. It's something really just needs to be understood, and it's more common of a diagnosis now. The most common form of diagnosis is level 1, which is high functioning autism. Like these are people you could talk to for months and you would never know if that they were autistic if you didn't know what to look for. You just think, oh, okay, this person doesn't like eye contact or whatnot, right? Like this whole autism thing is blown out of the water, blown out of proportion by, you guessed it, quacks who want to scare you so they can profit off selling their own private cures and elixirs that literally don't do anything.